section talking about your garden and its site in your yard, we're going to be looking at things that we want you to form as habits. The parts I just talked about, we had choices, decisions to make. Now we're talking about habits so that you will continue to keep your soil healthy forevermore. This is a picture of really nice soil. It's healthy. You can see that it's loose enough that it has air in it so that the soil is not dense and compacted. It can easily absorb water. You've got your organic materials in it. You can see those happy little rootlets coming through. One of the ways that you can keep your soil healthy is to establish permanent beds and paths. As you walk along, picking your fruit, tending your vegetables, you're going to be compacting the soil as you go. You want to be sure that you're not compacting the area where you want your plants to grow, because you will make it impossible for the air and the water to remain in there for your plants. So set up your garden beds. Here we see mounds, and they'll be 3 or 4 feet wide so you can reach them from each side. And in between, you have your permanent pathways where you can walk without worrying about impacting your plants. The soil that you are going to keep for your garden beds, you want to keep covered with something all the time. You don't ever want to have bare soil, because in the winter, the rains will wash away the top fertile areas of the soil. You're going to be putting compost down every time that you plant, and that compost gradually breaks down and becomes part of the soil there. So you've got really fertile soil on the top. You don't want to permit the rain in the winter or the winds to blow that soil away so you can't be using it. Here we've got 3 ways to keep your soil covered. The first on your left is actually a picture of a summer garden. We know because it's got the mulch around the plants. In the winter, you're going to be having bare soil that's covered by the plants, held in place and sheltered by the leaves of your winter garden. On the bottom right, you've covered it all up with straw so that the rain will run off and the soil is protected. On the top right is a topic we're going to be touching on next week and again in our soil workshop. And this is a cover crop, which not only protects, holds your soil in place, but it actually enriches your soil in many ways. Stay tuned for details. Here's another good habit, several good habits. Avoid synthetic fertilizers. These are usually the water-soluble fertilizers that hit your plants with a big rush of a nutrient and then sink into the soil and are washed away. Choose a slow release organic fertilizer whenever possible so that your plants will benefit from the long term of the nutrient. Pesticides are going to kill the pest you're looking for, but it also impacts other beneficial organisms and children, apparently, and birds who eat the bugs from your garden. When you have a problem with pests, see the integrated pest management site. There'll be a link on the references that we post for your handouts. This is referred to as IPM very often, and it will tell you the least harmful ways to deal with the pests. And then on your lower right, we've already alluded to don't go stirring up your soil. If you till your soil on a regular basis, this is what we're encouraging you not to do. If you till your soil on a regular basis, you'll find that there are 2 problems. One is, you can see on the left picture here, the plow pan. This is a layer of hard soil which forms just beyond the reach of your rototiller tines. It becomes very hard over repeated seasons and prevents roots from getting down into the lower portions of the soil. It also stirs up and disrupts all of the soil life that is naturally found in the upper layers of the soil. We talked a bit about that, the soil life, in the compost workshop. And these are those same organisms that live in your soil in addition to other organisms. And they form an entire community digesting and bringing minerals up from the soil to help your plants grow. You want them there. You want them happy. You want them to be rubbing shoulders with their favorite microorganism friends in their structured area of the soil there. So in the picture on the right, you have undisturbed soil at the top and a network of pores that lets your plant roots go down to pull minerals up from lower layers of the soil. Another reason not to stir up the soil is that your plant rootlets will take carbon deep into the soil. In fact, there are a lot of projects going with prairie restoration and some grazing areas that use perennial grasses, which have roots that go down 2 and 3 feet into the ground. They carry carbon down that far into the soil, and they leave it there when they die. If you till it, you bring it up to the surface and it becomes part of the carbon dioxide problem heating the climate. You want to leave the soil undisturbed by tilling, but you can use these forks. A broad fork is a broad fork that you can use to carry nutrients into the soil. If you're making an additive to the soil, you can place it on the top and then use this broad fork to work it into the soil a little bit, and this will cut small spaces into that microorganism colony, but it won't totally disrupt it. Here we have a no-till bed that's been built up over many seasons. And here's the picture you want to keep in your mind. Don't disturb your soil. It's working for you.
Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about season extenders. So a lot of our crops are kind of tender in the beginning when we get them going. So there's ways that we can help support them. So the best thing to do is to put up these hoops, and you can use the metal conduit that is used for electrical. I think it's called EMT, I'm not sure. Anyway, or you can use PVC. You can use all kinds of different things, but you want to have some kind of support to hold your protective cover. Now, the cover is an agricultural fabric that comes in different weights. Comes in a lighter weight that lets in a lot of light and not as much protection, or you can get heavier weights that let in less light but give more frost protection. So the lighter weight is called Ag 19. I think there's Ag 30, Ag 60. The higher the number, the greater the protection, the greater frost protection, and the less light that comes in. The other really important thing is that you always want to have those, any kind of fabric or covering that you use suspended off your plant. So it's that airspace that helps the protection, that gives that insulating quality. You can use plastic. Plastic works fine. The thing about plastic is it doesn't breathe. So you really have to be there to open it every day or you'll cook your plants. Remember, these are cool season plants. They like cold weather. So under a plastic cover, it could get to be 90 degrees. So you want to, I like the ag fabric the best, but plastic definitely works. The other thing with plastic is that you have to irrigate under it, whereas the Ag 19, any of the ag fabrics will actually allow water to pass through, will allow the rain to pass through. You want to attach the cover to your hoops somehow. You can use those giant binder clips, clamps from the hardware store, but you just want to make sure that when we get a good winter storm, that your fabric doesn't blow away or blow onto your plants, because if it's touching your plants, then the frost will just go right through the cover, and your plants will freeze. So you won't be protecting them. So this is the EMT hoops and the Ag 19. So you want to open it on the south side on sunny days. So it's a good thing. This is a good reason to run your beds north to south or east to west. So then you can open on the south side. But whichever way you do it, you want to open it to get to the sun on the sunny days. Close it up at night. So tuck them in, and then you can go through those cold nights. You can open up both sides like this to make harvest easier and to get more sun, more air circulation. Air circulation is really important for plants. That's the other thing with plastic, is you really have to open it so that you get the gases that the plants are releasing and that they need to take in, the oxygen and the carbon dioxide, so that those gases can exchange. The other good extender is the good old-fashioned cold frame. The important thing to remember about cold frames is that, again, they need to be vented so you don't cook your little plants. Cold frames are the best for starting things. They're usually a little bit too small to have full-size plants, whereas when you do the hoops, you can make the hoops tall enough to accommodate your full-size plants. Usually our climate is mild enough that once our plants get up and really get happy, they don't really need the protection, unlike in areas where it's really, really cold. A cold frame also wants to hinge up and open somehow so that you can get in there and work. If you look at the cold frames in the background of this picture, they're old windows on top of a raised bed. That works great. You just need to be able to open them and remove it or in a way that you can get in there to work, to take care of your plants. If it's really cold, you can do a cold frame inside a high tunnel. You can also do hoops and fabric inside of a high tunnel, so for a double protection. I know some of the local farmers around here do this to get their tomatoes started early. They have a high tunnel with with hoops inside, and it works really well. You can also do attached greenhouses, which are really a nice thing, to just have it. You can open your window in the middle of winter and have it be nice and warm air coming in, from your fragrant plants growing. The other really good thing, let me go back a slide, sorry about this, is that these hoops can be used to use shade cloth. So here we are, it's hot, we're planting cool season vegetables. Some of them aren't happy to be sitting in full sun when the days are still relatively long and the weather is still quite warm. So you can, instead of using the ag fabric, you can use these hoops to put shade cloth on. And that's a really useful thing for getting your vegetables started. And we'll be talking not more about the shade cloth, but getting your vegetables started in our next workshop. So again, on the website, this presentation will be on there. We have a list of online resources that there's probably, well, it's a double-sided full page of resources of all different topics that relate to cool season vegetables. So you can get lots of different information there. We have the downloadable handouts, and again, more workshops and lots of videos.
We have a few questions. First one is really for everyone, and it is is there a way to get to direct links without going through Facebook? So just as a reminder, we do have a great website. and you'll want to go to that. It's NC, as in Nevada County, MG, as in Master Gardener, .ucanr.org. And you can get direct links and everything else that Kristen and Peggy and Mary have mentioned. So now going on to some questions, and it's posted on your screen right now. Going on to some questions for our presenter team. Here's one for you. I'm a new gardener. What would you recommend as easy vegetables for this fall and winter?
Well, let's see. Lettuce is pretty easy. Radishes are pretty much foolproof. Peas are pretty easy. And really kale and chard are pretty easy. You probably want to stay away from Brussels sprouts. They're a little bit more challenging. But I think a lot of the things that we mentioned are really pretty easy. Cabbages are a little bit more challenging just because of the cabbage moth, but everything else is really pretty easy. Just dive in.
Great. Another one. So why are we starting winter veggies when it's so hot? Wouldn't they need some cool weather?
Yeah, this is the conundrum of cool season vegetable gardening. You need to get them started while the soil is warm, and again, to get them established before the Persephone period starts, which is in November 17th. So you need to get them established while there is greater than 10 hours of daylight. So that's the really takeaway point, is that plants just kind of go into suspended animation. They really aren't doing much when there's less than 10 hours of daylight. So that's why we start now, so that they are established and solid and healthy when the real cold weather and the real short days hit. And we'll talk more about what we're going to be teaching next week. And I think that we'll talk more about fall harvest and winter harvest and the differences in that.
Great, thanks, Kristen. Another one is, I don't have room in my garden this year. It's full of tomatoes and peppers. Is there any way I can grow anything this fall and winter?
Well, you can do this thing called intercropping, and you can add your starts in between your existing plants. Probably tomatoes aren't a great option for putting vegetables, but you can actually start your cover crop while your tomatoes are up. You can get your seeds in the ground. But when you have smaller plants like peppers and some other of the warm season vegetables that are a little bit smaller, probably not squash, but peppers are really the best. You can actually plant around them, plant your lettuces, seed in your root crops. You can do, if you're going to do starts of garlic, you can put those in around your plants. And then when the plants are done, when the first frost hits or you decide that you're going to take your plants down, don't pull them out of the ground, just cut them off at ground level. Leave the roots in the ground, which we're going to talk more about in our soil workshop, the advantage of doing that. And then you can intercrop and get some things started. And then next year, you'll know to save a bed for your winter crops. And we're going to talk more about that. A summer cover crop is a great choice for doing that, to hold a bed open so that all those orphan tomatoes and peppers that come your way from your neighbors, you can say, oh, sorry, I don't have room. I'm saving a bed for my winter garden. Thanks.
That makes sense, Kristen. Thank you. We've got one more here. Hey, you said those winter veggies didn't include blossoms and pollination. What about peas?
Oh, you caught us. Yes, peas are the exception to that. Peas do make a fruit. And I believe that peas are self-pollinating, so they don't need, they're not as dependent on insect pollination as a lot of the summer veggies are. So peas are the exception, but most of the time we are eating something other than a fruit.
Okay, sounds good. So that wraps up Q&A. And now, Lisa, I'll let you wrap up the workshop.
Thank you, Margaret, Kristen, Peggy, and Mary, and all the participants. In closing, we'd like to thank you and everyone who joined this morning for your interest in Master Gardeners of Nevada and our programs, and we'll see you next time.